Whoo-wee! That was quite the ride. After months and months of movies that came up short or just fell flat on their faces, if you told me that a sexual vampire horror musical would be the film that would rejuvenate my excitement for movie releases, well, I wouldn't have called you a truther. Sinners is the first movie I've seen in a while, clocking in well over 2 hours, that didn't feel 30 minutes too long. It starts at the end, a la Citizen Kane, with preacher boy Sammie staggering into his father's church during Sunday service, holding the broken neck of a steel guitar with violent scratches on his face. The movie takes us through the events of the preceding day, starting when Sammie finished his cotton-picking quota for the day and got picked up by his twin cousins, Smoke and Stack, played by Michael A. Jordan and Michael B. Jordan. The SmokeStack Twins have just returned from years away up north in Chicago, and they're fixing to open up a juke joint, which is basically a bar or club for black people in the sharecropping days of the Old South. So they buy an old mill for their venture from an old white man who conspicuously tells them that the Klan don't exist no more.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
But they gotta staff their juke joint, so Smoke and Stack split up and reunite with some old acquaintances, and we meet the characters of the movie. We've got Haley Steinfeld's Mary, Stack's ex who had her heart broken by him, Delroy Lindo's Slim, an old harmonica player who, along with Sammie, will provide the music for the joint, Annie, Smoke's ex, a spiritual whisperer who will provide the food, Cornbread, who will be the bouncer, an Asian couple from whom they're gonna buy a sign, and Perline, a married woman apparently eager to cheat on her husband and who really doesn't need to be in this movie. Once all of our characters are set in their places, the party ensues, with music, sex, and vampires on their way, drawn to the juke joint by Sammie's music. You see, we're told via narration that some music is so pure and true that it can pierce the veil between life and death, bring healing, but also attract evil spirits. And one specific white vampire wants Sammie, or more specifically, wants his music. And it is important that the vampire is white, but I'll get there. And that's all the plot summary you're getting from me, because finally, after literally months, here is a movie that actually warrants you going and seeing for yourself. So let me sing the praises of this film and touch on the couple of things that the movie didn't quite nail. The film's a pretty slow burn for the first half. I mean, you don't get a glimpse of a vampire until it's at least a full third of the way through. Up until then, we're really just getting to know the characters, and if you're gonna make a suspenseful, thrilling, scary movie, then we need to know and care about the characters, and this film does a pretty good job of doing it. A lot of that is accomplished just through simple dialogue between characters, just exchanging information, particularly when it comes to Stack with Sammie, but hey, he's been in Chicago for the past who knows how many years, and he and his little cousin are catching up. It's kind of a way to cheat the whole show don't tell thing, but the conversation is always flowing very naturally, so I'll let it slide. Smoke and Stack are known all over the town. They've got the fear, or at least respect, of pretty much everyone. They're twins, and I think when writers and directors have this twins played by the same actor situation, they're often tempted to make the two twins very different, so as to make them easily distinguishable to their audience, and to get more range out of a talented actor. Ryan Coogler resisted that temptation. Smoke and Stack are twins, so they're pretty similar. But once we get to know them, we can tell them apart. He splits them up to start so we can get to know them both on their own, and he dresses them to identify their personalities. Smoke in blue and Stack in red, to showcase the latter as the more fiery one ready for a fight, and the former, the more business-minded, but still ruthless one. Smoke will shoot a man in the leg for thinking about boosting something off the back of his truck, but then he'll immediately pay someone to fix him up. Stack would have just shot him and left. There are two real standout stars in this movie, and believe it or not, neither of them are Michael B. Jordan. The first is Miles Caton, who plays Sammie. Now, did he give the performance of a lifetime? No, not at all. But let's take a look at his IMDb page and see what his resume looks like.
Are you me?
This is his first movie, first like anything, and he learned guitar for it in the span of 2 months. Now, that's probably a testament more to Ryan Coogler and Ludwig Göransson being able to make it look and sound like he's much better than he really could feasibly be after learning for just 2 months, but still. He'll probably get an Oscar Best Supporting Actor nomination for this role, in his debut. It's like the movie equivalent to Derrick Rose's rookie season. The second star of the movie goes hand in hand with Sammie, and that's the music. This film has one of the best soundtracks I can remember. The last musical I was subjected to was Joker Folie à Deux. And Amelia Perez, I guess, but I'm really trying to block that one out from my memory.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.
But the contrast between Joker and this couldn't be starker. Rather than the movie stopping the entire flow of the plot and deciding it wants to insert a ridiculous tap dancing number that has no business being in the story, in Sinners the sequences actually flow quite nicely. They tell us more about characters, they build tension and fear, and they're wonderfully shot. Two of them I would buy a ticket again just to see. One that brings the house down, literally, as Sammie's music pierces the veil between life and death, and his blues music is joined by music throughout history ranging from West African tribal chants to a rock and roll electric guitar, with a hip-hop dancer getting in the mix and even a splash of Chinese Oriental music to boot. And the other sequence being an awesome rendition of a classic Irish folk song sung by the vampires as some of the partygoers that have been turned dance to it. One of the white vampires sawing on the fiddle and playing it hot in a horrifying Devil Went Down to Georgia meets Thriller music video type of vibe. And speaking of horror, this movie is obviously rated R. But I was surprised at how little it used that rating, the final climax accepting. Sure, there's plenty of language and blood. What I mean is I'm impressed by how much Coogler didn't show. Throughout multiple sex scenes, there was never any nudity, and the gruesome violence often occurs just out of shot, and we're left to see the aftermath of it. He builds the tension and horror by what he doesn't show as much as, or more than, what he does show. The jump scares are kept to a minimum, which is good. Coogler clearly tried to make a good horror movie, not one that relies on cheap fear. He tried to make a good horror movie, but I wouldn't be the boss sauce if I didn't tell you where he fell short. There is a lot going on in this movie, from vampires to music to sex to themes about race and cultural appropriation. And for the most part, Coogler does a pretty good job managing it all. But Coogler's only directed 5 feature-length films, and he's not quite there yet. I know critics love to praise him, and for this movie he definitely deserves a lot, but 2 of his 5 directorial ventures were Black Panther and Black Panther 2, neither of which were good movies. While he does a solid job with this one, there are parts where his relative inexperience can still be seen. A couple times we fumble a bit from one scene to the next. The climax, despite all the time it took to reach it, actually comes on kind of abruptly. The story spends a lot of time introducing us to the characters in the beginning, and I really don't think I would change that part. But it doesn't seem Coogler was able to get himself to cut the scenes and even the characters that he needed to. Of the 3 sex scenes, at least 1, probably 2, can go. And as I mentioned earlier, the married vixen Perline that Sammie and Stack meet while they're recruiting for the juke joint really doesn't need to be in the story. She seems to be introduced as someone for Sammie to bounce off of. Smoke and Stack both have exes whose lives they're returning to. But Sammie already has someone to be his narrative companion. Delroy Lindo Slim, a fellow blues musician with decades more life experience to pass on to Sammie. However, after dedicating a fair bit of time getting Slim to the party, he then gets kinda sidelined in favor of Perline, whose added screen time could be used to more smoothly transition the story into its climax and fall in action. The film also poses the question to some of the characters who are initially turned by the vampires of whether they really want to live in this world as it is and as they are. Whether it wouldn't be better to exist as a corrupted spirit than as a black person in the Jim Crow South. But that question is completely disregarded almost immediately, so I'm not sure why the movie bothered to ask it. Both of these things are examples, without giving too much of the movie away, of how the story is carrying just a little more than it should. It's like listening to a symphony. You should be able to experience it as though the music is being made by a single entity, but every so often an alto sax crescendos a bit too high, and you can distinctly hear it above the rest of the symphony, playing an octave too low. Not necessarily playing the wrong song, but taking your attention away from the rest of the symphony as you wonder why it made an appearance like that. The last problem with the movie is its theme. You're going to get a healthy dose of racism when you're following black characters in 1932 Southern America, that's a given. But if this movie is an allegory, then it's pretty clearly an allegory for cultural appropriation. The white vampire is drawn to Sammie, specifically so that he can harness the power of the music Sammie creates. He can create his own music, as he does, and quite excellent music at that, but only Sammie's pure steel guitar blues can pierce the veil between life and death, a power the vampire wants for his own uses. It's a white man sucking the blood of the black culture for himself. So, if you're an Irishman who wants a taste of black culture, that's cultural appropriation, and that makes you a vampire. But what if you're a black man who wants a taste of Irish culture? Because Stack bribes Slim to come play at the juke joint by offering him Irish beer, and the alcohol he and Smoke spoil their club patrons with is Irish beer and Italian wine. That should make Smoke and Stack culturally appropriating vampires as well, no? Unless the idea is that music counts as a part of culture and alcohol doesn't, but that's ridiculous. What you eat and drink is as much a part of your culture as what you listen to. So Coogler's allegory breaks down, because of course it does. It's not bad to recognize great elements of other cultures and want to adopt them for yourself. I'm an Irishman who loves the blues. I also love Barbados rum, Italian food, Scottish sports, Japanese cars, and Greek philosophy. And you'd lose it if I told you who I chose to marry. All that's not appropriation, it's appreciation. Heck, Ryan Coogler has devoted his life to filmmaking, which was invented by Frenchmen and first done in America by probably Thomas Edison, a white man. Does Coogler believe that he has culturally appropriated filmmaking and is himself a kind of vampire? I doubt it. So, Sinners? It's a really solid movie. Strongly founded, wild, gripping, musically fantastic. The question going forward is, will it turn out to be an anomaly for Ryan Coogler or a sign of greatness still to come? And speaking of greatness still to come, if you enjoyed that video, make sure you like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss more videos from this channel.
Too much sauce.